So
I'm pretty
good.
sure that was made by Steve.
Oh, it could have been. I mean,
I know it's not, but that would be even more funny.
I just want to know how does avoiding Babylon get on such a thing?
Like, I guess you
Or
got
Rick, how does Rick Barrett get on such a thing?
Dude, Rick Barrett, Rick, my organization and me are buried underneath the Titanic. Then you'll find me. That's pretty much how far. That's how far down I am. That's
under the
okay.
iceberg.
Yeah,
Your organization just had a recent name change, right?
yeah. If you want, we can talk about that later on. That's it is what it is in that regard. But I guess welcome to Avoiding Babylon. I am.
Yeah, you're the host.
I'm the fill-in. I'm the substitute teacher while Anthony is skipping through Rome. Hopefully, yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. So welcome. And I'm happy to be here. Always honored to be asked to host anybody else's show because it's finally a chance for people to actually see me since nobody actually watches mine. So anyway, enough with that.
You have the self-deprecating.
Oh, dude, I am the king of it. I'm a New Englander. I'm an Irish New Englander, which means that's all I got. That's pretty much all I got. So. Hey, Jacob, thank you for hanging out with us. It's great to be here. It's great to be here with Rob, and it's great to be here on this topic tonight. I'm sure Nicholas is going to have a lot to say about it as well. We'll touch on a bunch of other things, but I guess we'll get to a main point, which is very close to my heart, and it's very applicable to the modern world and what we're dealing with, and it's the Daniel Penny. I always confuse it because they're both Daniel Perry and Penny. Perry was down in Austin. Penny was up in New York. But we have the Daniel Penny trial taking place in New York City, where apparently you can get suppressors and just whack people on the sidewalk with no problem. By the way, I'll give you my 2 cents. I don't think it was the wife or anything. I think I called this last night on one of my other shows. It's just a family member of somebody who got denied coverage. It's what it is. And they'll probably never find him. You can release all the pictures you want. At this point, the dude's gone. I don't know what you guys think about that. Rob, you can let me know what you think first.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't look professional to me. I mean, people clearly the gun malfunctioned, whether or not he knew it was going to prior to that or not. I mean, just the way he handled it didn't look all that professional to me. And generally a professional in this case means you don't get caught on camera multiple times. Yeah. So I think you're right. I think it's probably just someone who had a grudge against the company in general, and really went out of his way to plan it clearly. So yeah, it would be surprising if we ever found out who it was.
Yeah.
Nick, what do you think?
I honestly think the same thing, just because, I mean, there's a lot of things in this which make it look kind of sloppy. And you would expect, if it was a professional hitman or something like that, for it to be much more clean and precise. And that's just not the case. And yes, everyone, I am streaming from Fallujah, al-Iraq. That's where I'm at currently, and yeah, it's pretty hot here. It's like 105 degrees, so pretty fun.
So the thing about the we can talk about the fact, that there's two things in there. If you're really Irish, there's a lot that there's a problem with that. But, Irish and the Italians shall not meet unless they're in Rhode Island, and B, no,
No.
just no. So just my 2 cents on this, and I know everybody became an expert on assassinations and gunplay yesterday. It's always fun to go through gun Twitter when this stuff happens.
Suddenly everyone knew that there was a difference between subsonic and supersonic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I actually believe the dude knew how to use firearms. I think he is, because he does have stance and all that stuff correct. He doesn't bring it up to his eyes, which means he's only gone to the range once or twice. I think the reason the gun malfunctioned is because he never shot it with a suppressor before. Yeah. If you've ever held a firearm with a suppressor, the weight is noticeable. It's noticeable because you're putting all that extra weight in the front of the gun. And that's why his grip was probably messed up, probably led to those malfunctions where he had to rack it. So that and the underpowered ammo. But that's my 2 cents. And besides the fact that he's a zealot, which is what you guys were kind of saying as well. Not a professional, but zealot enough to plan, do all this stuff, do the thing. He did it with a lady like right in front. If you notice the actual video, the lady turns around after the first shot. He didn't even care. He didn't even care that he shot. He just kept going. And then, so somebody said it did the job. He doesn't care. He did the job and he was gone. So that's really what happened out there.
Yeah.
Plus, professionals usually don't write on the ammunition. Let's give them fingerprints and a handwriting sample all at the same time.
Yeah, probably. I forgot how to actually drink tea tonight, so that's probably why I'm coughing. But we haven't. I don't stay up this late either because I'm a very old man. I usually am asleep by this time. So he wasn't a pro. I think we can all agree on that. And so yeah, that's pretty much what we have about that. As far as people release the photos, I don't think that really means anything nowadays because at this point the kid's probably out of the city. So
I mean, I think the only way they find them is through cell phone location data. But even then, like, they can't just blanket search whoever was in that location, right? They need to have an idea of who to get a warrant for, or at least theoretically, that's how they're supposed to do it.
Yeah, theoretically, in that regard. Plus, it doesn't, and I'll say this, in a place like New York, which leans progressive, you have a lot of people and this will tie into our story when we talk about Penny. You have a lot of people in prosecution and a lot of those places, which may actually will agree with the motivations of the shooter.
True.
I think that's not, it may be a controversial thing to say, but you have Loretta, I think it's Loretta Lynch is the attorney general in New York. Or is that, yes. I think I'm some big overweight woman that is angry at the world.
She just described
pretty much every liberal out there. Yeah. Everybody in New York as well. But prosecution and so forth, I believe that they all agree in one way or another. They all think capitalism's bad. They all think that the United Healthcare and all these health corporations are robbing and not helping and so forth. So I don't think there's a lot of rush to find him. I'm actually Irish and Italian to the person in the chat, so I got the worst of both worlds. So my favorite, if I was to go on death row, my meal would be like a Guinness and a plate of pasta. So just to kind of,
it's like the worst combo.
Hey, I gotta go anyway. I might as well go out in style.
Oh man, I don't know if I call it style, but
what do you think about?
Actually, in real life, it would be 20-piece chicken McNugget, but that's
yeah. Honestly, I was just like, if I had to go, like, I mean, I'm of Spanish descent, but I'm also from the South, so I'm gonna get like, give me some steak, give me some fried chicken, bunch of unhealthy stuff if I'm gonna go anyway. So
yeah, right. They don't do that anymore. Actually, some guy they used to do. They don't do last meals because some guys. He ordered like $25,000 worth of food. And so they were like, yeah, we can't do this anymore. Because
I found the way to beat the system. They can't put me to death yet.
Here's the local DoorDash menu. Choose from this.
I
You
come
took
from a
me
big
down on the way
complex
out.
religion. You have to eat 50,000 plates of food before one passes away. It's part of my religious observances.
That's right. That's right. I'll Deus fault if I can't have 1,400 tacos before I die. So it's really that's your problem,
Some guy
not
keeps the
mine.
system.
So it's religious exemption. SCOTUS is gonna have to. Yes, whoever said Waffle House, you're my new favorite person.
I've been there once, and I
Rob,
appreciated it.
don't.
No,
Nick,
I
you're
liked
from the
it.
South. You have to, by law.
No, it's pretty
Love
good. Like
Waffle
I
House.
say, it's even, but I think it's mostly not Waffle House. I think it was like specifically the Waffle House I've been to. It's just was like,
Well,
eh.
if you went on fight night, yeah, of course it's not going to be that much fun.
Fight
You got to
night.
get there beforehand and then get your food and then you watch. That's how it goes. You can't happen like mid-fight because then the service is gone because everybody's in handcuffs and they got to reset everything. So
No, I
it's
know.
it's not
I
good.
want
on
to
that.
show up and chuck a couple of chairs myself next time I go.
Yeah, that's how you got to do it. And then, get
You're
the
christening
hash
into
browns.
Waffle House. That's what you need to do, Rob. When you get there, just pretend it's WWE. Chuck a few chairs and say, "Where's my food?"
I just come in blasting music, blasting music.
Stone Cold. Usually
Yeah.
Stone Cold works. So.
But just make sure to identify as a woman because it brings me actually my brief funny story of today was so again, I'm not telling people where I landed, but let's just say I landed in Baghdad, right? I just happened to land in Baghdad today. And what ended up happening to me was that I'm at the counter, right?
Wait a minute. You're in a certain part of the country similar to what we were just talking about, and you don't want to tell anyone where did you do this?
Yes. No.
Are you the guy on camera?
Pretty bold to come on a live stream 2 days after and pretty
I
much be
know,
like,
for real,
yeah,
bro.
this guy's totally a professional, probably the greatest shooter of all time.
I mean,
Rather handsome,
honestly though,
too.
like if Kamala Harris would have won, I probably could have just showed up on a TV station. Nothing would have happened. They would have just been like, well, is what it is. Maybe he was just angry against corporations. But I was I was with my dad and we were in front of the counter to rent a car and we're just sitting there. It's just like super stone cold quiet. And then I hear behind me, "It's called, ma'am. Do you want to call the security? Call the security." I turn around to my left side. 6'8" tranny right behind me walking, yelling at this like 4'0" Indian girl about like not having his car properly reserved, etc., etc. It was like, wow, I've had a pretty chill day all day long. And right here at the end, of course, I get stopped by a tranny. Just how it happens, man.
Well, being in that part of the country, it's just natural to be engulfed in mental illness.
You
It's
expect to
just
see, the local wildlife when you travel.
Exactly.
I guess so, in that regard, because it's sad because those parts of the country are gorgeous. They're absolutely stunning. And then you look at the people that have absolutely just wasted it. And just, they continue to let it go to waste, but there's really nothing you can do about it. You have two options. You can try to stay and fight. And I know people, I'm very good friends with people in both coasts who are committed to staying in those places and trying to do what they can. I think that's great. I can't really talk because I fled to Texas. So I got out of there as soon as I really could. And I haven't looked back since. And, I mean, besides the constant rain in December, it's either rain or snow, I guess. So but it is what it is in that regard. It's not too bad.
It's just how it is. It's just how it is.
It can be. It can be. But we'll move back and where is Nick?
Now you guys can guess. Everyone guess in the chat while we're
You told us all on Tuesday, FYI.
I did, but see, the thing is, it was kind of a test because no one listens to me, including my family. RIP. And so we'll just have to see where people can guess.
He's in Baghdad. That's right. They're the rooftop trannies, not the rooftop Koreans. So
yes,
man, those kings.
They are my favorite people on the planet. The invoking of the rooftop Koreans is a sacred thing in the gun community. Do not invoke them unless you are ready to.
I was sad we did not get to see any rooftop Koreans during their coup this week that lasted all of 2 hours.
Oh, exactly. I mean, right? You were in Korea with no rooftop Koreans.
No, it was disappointing.
Well, I mean, you got to give it to the Koreans. They're very efficient in everything, even in their coups. I think that thing lasted about 2 hours and 45 minutes before the guy who called it.
It's just because they're not the best Korea. There's only one Korea that's the best Korea, and they happen to not be the best.
We got to get rid of him before he says something like that.
I can add myself back.
I don't even know what you're talking about, but okay, that's great. So, in that regard, but we'll move back in there to tonight's. We'll start with tonight's topic, and that's Daniel Penny, and the trial has taken place. In case people didn't, or in case anybody doesn't know, Daniel Penny was on the subway in New York City. And a man who was on a couple different drugs came onto the subway car that he was on and was threatening to rob people, was threatening to kill people. And so Penny, in an act of, I don't know, just a fleeting moment of masculinity, decided that he was going to step in and do this. And I'm not saying this to actually denigrate Perry. I'm actually saying it as as in contrast to the rest of society.
Yeah.
And the fact that most men, and we get railed on it by women. Oh, you guys don't step up and help out women anymore. And guys are like, this is what you wanted, see ya. But yeah, equality, it sucks. Welcome to it. But the fact is, that's why I'm saying a fleeting moment of masculinity where he was just like, maybe he just was a bad day for him. Maybe he just had some stuff. He's like, I'm tired. I'm done with it. And it's something that all guys have had that feeling within the last couple of years, probably post the summer of love. There's been a situation where you have thought something needs to happen. But for whatever reason, and I'm not calling anybody's masculinity into question or anything like that, there are a lot of things that have been put in place by society to restrict those feelings. And now we're seeing the fact that the Penny case is yet another layer that is being added on to for this. And so he puts the man in a chokehold, which some people say was good, some people say was bad. If you guys understand it better, I'm not a jujitsu guy. I'm more of a gunsu guy. So I don't do like the hand-to-hand stuff because I'm 2 feet tall. But hobbits don't do. I mean, dwarves fight, but we don't. It's one thing or another. But so he does this chokehold, and the fact of the matter is, and I'm not talking like Snow White dwarf. I'm talking Gimli from Lord of the Rings dwarf. So I know we have to actually.
It's a good nuanced distinction today. Yeah,
it is a nuanced
and here I thought you were talking Peter Dinklage dwarf. I'm sorry.
No, see, the fact is they used to be called little people. They used to be called midgets, but because we live in this society and people were like, oh, you can't say that. That's offensive. They're like, fine, we'll call you dwarves because I guess that's a nicer way to say that.
Because naming you after an entirely different race of people is somehow better.
And naming you after an entire race of other little people is somehow nicer. It was either, I mean, on the bingo card, it was either
at
that
least
or
it
elf.
wasn't gnomes.
You knew, right? So yeah, the fact is, Perry puts them in this chokehold. Other people assist him, which is very interesting to note because nobody else was in fear of Daniel Penny being this raging, falling down-esque, if anybody gets the movie reference, falling down-esque moment where he's just not going to take it anymore. Am I saying, if I say Perry, please understand I mean Penny, because it's literally 2 letters in the exact same spot for the same guy. So it is what it is. Daniel Penny puts this guy in the chokehold. Other people assist. Nobody else is in fear of him. The police show up.
Yeah, no one's telling him, like, no one's saying stop, or
no, nobody's like, this is terrible. What are you doing? They're like, let me kick him while you have him down. They were pretty much doing that. And so the police show up, and this is a very interesting thing. Now he's got a pulse. We're good, so we don't have to do anything. Medical teams show up, and they're like, this dude's really dirty. We're not actually going to give him CPR because we don't want to get our guys infected. That is not me being a racist. That's actually in the transcript from testimony. CPR, which is weird because if you've ever taken a first aid course, they have the little masks you can put over the mouths in case they regurgitate and so forth. So even with all of that stuff, they're like, yeah, we're not touching this guy. We're just going to put him on a gurney and get him out. That's how bad he was. Goes to the hospital and subsequently dies later on. The only problem is the New York City subway is, it's gross, and the Waffle House is amazing. So I will not have. All right, I don't have a lot of rules for being a temporary host, but besmirching of the Waffle House will get you booted. Okay, I stand the Waffle House hardcore, and any besmirching of the Waffle House will get you banned. So that's one thing that I will not take.
The comments in a second should be glorious.
What?
I said these comments, they're going to I don't know, man. They're gonna come at you.
That it's not my first rodeo, so I'm really not too worried about that. So the fact of the matter is, he dies, and you can call it, but you're still showing respect.
He dies
showing it respect.
He dies minutes, not even like tens of minutes after the fact, right? The Jordan Neely or whoever, you said he dies, but it's like he dies quite a while after the fact.
He doesn't die at the scene. He dies at the hospital later.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and so that's another thing. He's, I believe, in my research for tonight's show, originally Penny before my grammar Nazis, my grammar Waffle House hating Nazis come after me. So they say you're good. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Move on. Very similar to the Perry case in Austin, where the police in Austin actually said you're good as well. Move on. You're fine. Only after subsequent pressure, because the media, and you can trace this all the way back to 2012 with Trayvon Martin. Trayvon Martin was the first time they ever said, okay, he's a 17-year-old muscular football player, but we're going to give you a picture of him at his 5th birthday party with Bozo the Clown every time we can get it. So that way the juxtaposition of the evil person who took the life of this innocent child. Same thing happened there. Michael Brown. There's an entire, all the way up to George Floyd. This pattern has been established for over 10 years by the legacy media. So they do the same thing. He was, and we'll hear the quote from New York's own mayor, where he was a Michael Jackson intimidator. I think he meant to say impersonator, but that's the mayor of New York for you. He was a Michael Jackson impersonator who just wanted to, make people smile and so forth. And Daniel Penny woke up and said, I'm going to kill me a black guy today, and decided to do that. Now we're in our 3rd day of deliberations. And I said this morning, Penny's fate was sealed the moment the guy died. And people are like, oh, well, maybe there will be nothing. He is going to be found guilty. It's just by how badly. And if that's not bad enough, and we'll talk about this later, the mother and father of Jordan Neely today have decided to sue Daniel Penny. For what? I don't know. Did Daniel Penny cause the drug habit of Jordan Neely? Probably not. Did Penny force Neely to go on the subway and threaten and intimidate other people? No, he did not. Now, I've been talking. I recognize that I've been talking a little bit here, trying to set up the topic in the conversation. But the fact of the matter is, the persecution of guys like, and it is a persecution of a guy like Penny. And as we go through the breakdown of it, I'll give you my feelings on things from when he was arrested all the way through to this point. Is just another example of why you, as a man in this modern society, and here's the thing, somebody said stay out of blue states. I see you have a Houston Astros logo. I would say stay out of blue, anything blue. I won't go into Austin unless I have to. I absolutely will not go into Austin. I will go in Austin, Houston, San Antonio. I have to go to El Paso because I have family there. But you are at the mercy of the individual district attorneys. It's not even that. But I've rambled on for a little bit too long. Nick, your thoughts as you've observed from this whole thing on the Daniel Penny trial?
It reminded me of 2 things. So number one, when you mentioned in 2012, this was kind of the beginning of when the legacy media started to push these style of stories. But that was also either the year or it was pretty close prior to it, the year in which we finally saw the separation between, like, at least if you will, at least on paper, the separation between the media and the White House become separate. I need to remember this court case. If I can go back and or find this decision, I'll try to link it into the comment section. But it was under the Obama administration in which the media started to get explicit commands from the White House openly, and they weren't denying it anymore. They started to get explicit commands. So it makes sense that whatever narrative, in particular the Obama White House wanted, would go forward from there. And Obama's always remained the major player behind the scenes, both in the 2016 election, 2020 election, and the 2024 election. And so it shouldn't surprise us, that the media would do this. The second thing it reminded me of, though, was the attempted, if you will, racializing, if you will, of the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. Yes. Because they attempted to do the same thing with him, but it was more preposterous because, of course, all of the quote unquote victims in that crime, quote unquote crime, were all white. And so it never really stuck. But what did we see? We saw the Biden, I think it was a campaign then, because I don't think he'd been elected president, but the Biden campaign, as well as many other Democrat leaders come out and call Kyle Rittenhouse racist, saying that his actions were actions of white supremacy, etc. And so what it does is that it's just this continuous narrative of painting anybody in self-defense as a racist, because ultimately, really, with wokeism as a whole ideology, you have to split everyone up into oppressors and oppressed. And if by chance the oppressors in your worldview happen to have the guns, and you want to remove the guns in order to gain greater power and greater authoritarianism in civil society, then that's, two birds with one stone, if you will. So that's kind of what it reminds me. And this, unfortunately, is kind of just the next plank in this overarching story. And unfortunately, I think this will still be a thing for a while as we continue to have blue cities and blue state judges who will act this way. Because when it came to, in particular, Perry's case, right, I live just literally like 45 minutes south of Austin. So I remember when that happened and just how absolutely wild that was, because again, Texas, very red. I was very happy about our election results in 2024, right? 14 points swing. It was great. But Austin voted percentage wise more for Harris than Los Angeles did. So it's a cesspool. And so we shouldn't be surprised. And I think your advice is quite apt. If you are in a blue city or a blue state, get out of there, because it is becoming a potential hazard. If you are going to just practice something as simple as castle doctrine, you might have an insane court case and you might be thrown into the modern day version of Alcatraz. You never know.
Also, before Rob, real quick, the idea of castle doctrine is not even a national thing. If you're in a blue state, like I'm from the state of Rhode Island, and I outline this in my book, The Armed Catholic, the Catholic Case for Guns and Self-Defense, which you can find on Amazon. It makes a great gift for everybody. So please,
great gift for your girlfriends, for your wives, for everybody out there.
Everybody. It's actually been called the greatest book on the topic ever written. It's a little humble brag. But the state of Rhode Island, a blue state where I'm from, has something called duty to retreat, which means there is no place you cannot go before you can act in self-defense, and prosecution will use that against you. As opposed to states like Texas, which has a castle doctrine or a stand your ground state. That phrase was very popular, or came part of the lexicon in 2012 with the Trayvon Martin case, where people were actually trying to get rid of it because, progressives were saying it has racist roots and whatever the case may be. But that's real quick on that, where you're correct. You have to know your individual laws of your state, because a lot of people don't even understand that. Yeah, my man. Or Phoebe, woman, sorry. my awesome person. Did I misgender you? I think I just did. Anyway, Rob, I'll shut up. What do you think?
So I don't think it's necessarily a red versus blue thing. The problem is largely in the more liberal, Democratic Party side. But what it really comes down to is like this utopian rejection of reality that so much of society has, where people, and those people are largely liberal white women, but people want to completely ignore that the problems that our society has. They want to see someone like Jordan Neely, and they if anyone was going to deal with the problem, they think, the big nanny state should, but not with cops, but with social workers, right? They want to defund the police, have social workers come and just kind of baby these insane people that we have all over our society. And when you have someone like Daniel Penny take matters into their own hand, what it does is it shatters their view of the world. It brings them screaming back to reality in a way they just react to viscerally. So I think that's why you see such a reaction against someone like Daniel Penny. It's not necessarily even because it's a white guy choking out a black guy. It's because it destroys their whole view of the world instantly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's a very good point, because we have, whatever you think about the current state of these United States, we have lived in a nice, very comfortable bubble for the last 50, 60, 70. You can give me a date and I'll
the
agree with
Civil
it.
War, basically.
Yeah, where we have, outside of movements like the civil rights movement, where there was unrest and things like that, we've never really had to worry about an unsafe society.
Mm-hmm.
And the longer we have gone away from that, the more, it's cliche. So hard times make, the whole thing, good times make soft men, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's heard of it a gazillion times on podcasts like these at this point, because there's a bit of truth in it. These good times have come and we have fallen because we have not been put to task. The idea that, hey, the government's there, the police will be there, and your peace officer, which then became a police officer, which then became an extension of the military through the various militarized efforts and giving the surplus military gear to your local law enforcement. And we have developed this crutch to the government. Even the most independent of us have still done that. And a problem for conservatives or people who just, who are not interested in the downfall of society as we know it. We'll just call them progressives, Marxists, whatever name you'd like, communists, whatever one you want to assign to them. They're all pretty much different strokes of the same paint. But the idea here was we follow the rules. We follow the rules. So when the cops show up, we participate and we work with the cops to make sure that law and order stays. And we've lived within that fantasy, reprogrammed by propaganda with 500 gazillion cop shows and movies. We all love them. One of my favorites is 24. Can't help it. Just the first 2 seasons. Then like the last 5 where he's running around just like murdering people outside of nowhere. Just no. But the first 3 seasons of 24 are great. And then even one of my other favorite shows, Chuck. Chuck is about the CIA saving the world. And it's like, okay, yeah, well, and everybody has them. And that's programmed us to default our independence to something else, some other government agency. And it has taken away this idea that we live in a fallen world, right?
Yes.
We live in a fallen society. And that's also part of the problem where as we become more comfortable, we become more secular. And the fact of the matter is, when times are tough, the church rises. When times are tough, people realize, hey, man, all this crap that we're surrounded with means nothing. My relationship with God is the most important thing, because that's my stabilizing factor that gets me through day to day, not the latest Apple iPhone or whatever else kind of crap that we have around here. It's those relationships. And so and that's why the left and capitalism and all this other kind of stuff, and I'm not an anti-capitalist, relax, I'm not one of those, but it has been a vehicle to push comfort.
Yeah.
And it has been a vehicle to push softness. All right. Every skill or every convenience, every time somebody orders something from DoorDash, they lose the skill of cooking. Every time somebody, has, they order a greenhouse from Amazon, they lose that skill of building it and creating it in their home and making it adjustable to their home.
You have capitalism pushing for AI, which is going to do who knows what to the workforce.
Yeah.
Well, AI will destroy everything from workplace productivity to relationships between men and women. So there's no field that it will not destroy. That is right.
Well, can you DoorDash
save us?
Can you DoorDash Waffle House?
Waffle House will save us.
What if you DoorDash Waffle House?
You can't. I don't think you can DoorDash.
That darkness
it
and
doesn't
light
work,
don't
really.
mix. Darkness and light don't mix, so it's
They
an
don't.
impossible conundrum.
They don't. But yes, that is the idea that we live in this fallen society. We've forgotten that come on, y'all be nice.
Oh, this is them being nice, trust us.
Yeah, yeah, they're being rather pleasant actually.
They're actually very polite tonight.
We're actually being very cordial. You suck.
Yeah.
But anyway, the fact is we've lost all of this. We're losing it. And yes, we have things. By the way, huge shout out to the Catholic land movement. They were in Rome. They, had an audience with the Pope. They presented their, really hope they get what they're looking for. Those guys are doing the absolute work that people need to be aware of. But anyway,
Pope will just find out. He's like, wait a minute, what is this Tridentine Mass? They were nice guys. They were only gay. And then this would disprove it.
Maybe. We're just gonna have to kind of wait on bated breath on that one. Maybe they can just slide on through, but who knows? They can get with the FSSP and kind of go from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my view on that. It's really the fact that we've been too comfortable. The comfort has led us away from the church and away from the idea that it is a fallen society. Once you understand that it's a fallen society, you don't ask the question that progressives and just even normal secular people, how can this happen? Anytime something bad happens, what's the first thing? How can this happen here? Because we've been and people like Elon Musk, the technocrats, are trying to create that bubble where it's like, this won't happen here. This, if you just give us the Neuralink, this won't happen here. If you just give us this won't happen here. And that's the promise of modernism and technology. And Nicholas has fallen asleep, so I want to get him back into this.
No, I'm not. I'm actually I've been up since 3 a.m. today. So if I look like someone said Nick looks sad, Anthony will be back. Don't worry. I'm not sad. I'm honestly I had like literally 2 hours of sleep last night and woke up at 3 a.m. to get going to Fallujah. So
I don't sleep on planes either, so I get it.
Yeah, it was I just had screaming babies for 6 hours. That's all I heard over and over and over again.
Welcome to my life.
I know. I'm like, do I want to be a parent? I don't know. Anyway, but no. So what you reminded me of was a great friend of mine, Dr. Matthew Meinert. He is a Thomistic theologian, and he was talking about this whole concept of technology. Even capital. He's not an anti-capitalist. I'm not either. But like what it does, if you will, to one, man on the natural level, but then two, just like what we should have on the Christian level. So just as an example, 100 years ago, right? And we still have some remnants of this in Texas, very little left. But we would almost every state had what was called the blue laws. Things like, okay, yeah, most of the stores are closed on Sunday, except for the emergency companies, right? They're all going to be closed, etc.
Still can't buy a car in Minnesota on a Sunday.
Oh, really? Well, see, you can't buy alcohol up until noon on a Sunday here in Texas.
We were like that until 3 or 4 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like that. This is how things were for a good amount of time. But what an unbridled capitalism does is it flattens out time into nothing more than just make money and receive product. Yep. And what it does is it does two things. Number one, it de-Christianizes that type of capitalism, de-Christianizes a society in which says, okay, there's nothing special about Sunday or about holy days. It's just, let's make money, let's consume stuff. So it removes God from the mix and it makes money or productivity God itself. And then the second thing is that it doesn't satisfy man's heart. So I'm trying to remember who said this. Perhaps it was St. Augustine, but I know it's just a general principle in Thomistic thought, which is this: because man's soul is immaterial, right? You can't put the soul under a microscope and look at it. Because it's immaterial, it's made for the immaterial, i.e. it's made for God because God is immaterial. Like we long for God. We long to be known. We long to know. We long to be loved. We long for the objective good. All of these things are God. But what an unbridled capitalism does, or just this overall society, whether it be AI, the destruction of relationships, etc., is it just increases man's desire for temporal, corporeal things. So as an example, it's just like when people think things like, if I just happen to have the best car or the next iPhone or all of the food or whatever, fill in the blank, any temporal thing, then I'll be happy. Mm-hmm. And that's not correct. And that's why we have such a huge spike in depression today, Like, pay attention, y'all, to this point. We have a huge spike in depression because man is seeking to fulfill an incorporeal need with corporeal things, i.e., simpler language, we desire to fulfill our soul with physical stuff. And it can't work, right? It's like putting water into a gas tank in a car. It's not going to work. And so at the end of the day, we need to keep all of these principles in mind, that if we're going to not just save our soul, but also live well, we have to properly order these things. And so we can enjoy, right, certain good things. Like, I'm happy there's such a thing as electricity. I'm happy the internet exists. I'm happy that I have warm running water. But then, especially in times like the season we're in now, Advent, are we going to give up penances for our Lord, not only to help us in our own soul, but then also so that we can be detached from this and hopefully by our example convict others, have conversations with others, and move us closer to a Christian society? That's kind of what I was thinking on it.
What do you got, Rob?
I think you're right on. Hit the nail right on the head, Nick.
Yeah,
for sure. What's funny, so this last weekend, we traveled down to visit family for Thanksgiving down to Minneapolis and St. Paul, and they have a big science museum there, mostly for kids. And I always loved going, so I brought our kids with, and they had this this whole display on mental health. And they had this little kind of drama set up for depression, and my 5-year-old wanted to watch it, so we did. And then it was a day or two later, he had all these questions about what depression is, and like trying to explain that to a 5-year-old, how some people have this hole that they just can't fill, right? They can't fill with something to make them happy because they're, like you said, generally searching for the wrong things to make them happy. So yeah, I think you're right on the head.
The idea that technology will replace God is something that they've been trying to do forever. Whether
since the Tower of Babel.
Yeah, exactly. Ever since man fell, we've been trying to find a way to replace or subset or try to fill, as Nick said, the soul's natural desire to be with God with other things, which is why in his providence he gave us the 7 deadly sins to be careful of and to be aware of, because without having an idea on those, it's easy to fall into them. As you were saying, gluttony this time of year. When I used to teach, man, I would walk into the break room and it would be like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory with the amount of cakes and cookies and all these other kinds of things that parents would bring in. And of course, it will always lead up to the fact that everybody's got to lose 15 pounds at the beginning of the year because, they gain it all in the spirit of being jolly and all of these other kinds of things. So it's a natural thing that we have to be warned about, because as humans, we're just stupid. We don't understand these things. We try to, and we do have, we're blessed by the Lord to have a higher intellect, but we're also dumb enough to be led by our lower faculties if we allow it, right? A man will easily seek pleasure at the drop of a hat without discipline or any other things to keep him in line. And this idea translates kind of back to where we're at now in society, where you have men who have given up roles. It's part given up, part forced out. They've been forced out as providers and protectors, providers by the government, which is why you see single family homes. Women are encouraged to find a man, get married, have a kid, divorce him, so that way the government can step in and force the man to pay for that woman and her lifestyle however she sees fit, without just the destruction of the patriarchal system. Which, if you really want to get a mind meld, if we were in a patriarchal society that women claim we are in a divorce, the kids would go to the dad.
Yeah.
If you think about that, if we truly lived in the patriarchal society that women claim we do live in, every time there would be a divorce, they would be like, okay, woman, you can go off. The kids will stay with the paternal line.
Then there'd be no 50-50 split of anything either.
There would be no divorce. Women would not. Yeah. There would be no desire for divorce, because there would be no positive outcome from them. So you have the idea of providers is being pushed out. Also, there's that, and then there's sorry if this offends you, but welcome to my life. The fact that the incentivization of women in the workforce and women in college, if you look at the statistics, women outnumber men 2-3 to 1 in colleges. And women talk about, well, I can't find a man that makes the kind of money I can. Yeah, you know why? Because you took his job. And they don't want to, they've been told to take that job, not realizing that they have supplanted the man that they want to provide and protect them. They took that job from them. They supplanted the person they wanted to do that. So providing, protecting, gone. And then protection, obviously, given up to the state. And people in Catholics don't even understand that we have talked to, all the way back to the foundations of the church. The Catholic Church has talked about, hey, there are bad people in the world. And this is partly one of the reasons I started 1121 Strategies, L1121 Strategies, is because if you were to listen to your average bishop on Sunday or your average priest, I know Nick knows, being in Texas, the Galveston bishop, not really great. The El Paso bishop, even worse.
Yeah.
They can't
San
wait to
Antonio's-
talk. Yeah,
San
awful.
Antonio
They
bishop.
can't wait to talk about how bad guns are.
Yeah,
They
it's like
can't wait.
the San Antonio bishop, he just, like, I think it was two or 3 days before the election, said something like Hitler was elected on being anti-immigrant. He just tweets that out. I'm like, that gives us an idea of quite a bit. Like, it's just a joke. It's an absolute joke right now.
Oh, it's awful. It's absolutely awful. And that was one of the reasons I did that, because every time a bishop would say things, as a guy who works at gun ranges and goes to these places all the time, and I tell people I'm Catholic, they give me the stink eye. Like, oh, you're one of those. Like, and it's like, no, I'm part of I'm here too, guys. Like, we're all in the same boat here, man.
It is amazing how much of the gun/self-defense community, if they're Christian, is Protestant or non-denominational. And like, it's weird how many Catholics are against that. Outside of traditional Catholicism, most Catholics look down upon guns and self-defense.
But it kind of makes sense why they would, because it's like, I mean, they have an untraditional notion of the fifth commandment. Like, they think that thou shalt not murder is this blanket. I mean, some of them will take it to the blanket statement of like, yeah, we should not even kill animals. It's like we've made murder into kill, and we've quote unquote abolished the death penalty.
Yeah.
So therefore people are scratching their heads saying, well, yeah, why would you call on a firearm to protect you or something like that? I mean, it becomes really, really sad. But what it reminds me of ultimately is I was reading this meditation by St. Alphonsus Liguori a few days ago, and he rightly pointed out that, whether it's the evils that we're talking about or the evils that he was referring to in his day, like, evil is defined as like the deprivation or the privation of a good. So like stuff that's good and there's stuff that's lacking from it. That's what an evil is. And what is goodness itself? It's God, but God gives us the order, including the natural order of self-preservation, self-protection for our own good. But every time we choose to sin, what we're doing is we're saying that sin is a better good than goodness itself, being God. We've made, like, even in the action, an idol immediately, because we're saying, this pleasure or this whatever, fill in the blank, is better or more good than God. And so we can do this the same with ideology. We can do this with individual sins, lust, gluttony, impurity, etc. But we can do this with ideologies. We can be like, yeah, I think that I know better than what Christ Church has taught for 2,000 years. I think, in fact, yeah, like, what pro-life means is that we should just completely abolish the death penalty, not in the context of just things like, well, maybe it would be more financially prudent, but, oh, no, it's immoral, and, God just happened to be wrong. That's just not how it is. Like, God made a natural order, and part of the natural order and the natural law is self-preservation. It's just how it is.
So there's, I'm sorry. You good?
Oh, that was it. Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah.
So a couple things. Rob, your first point, what's one of the most popular YouTube channels, one of the most popular guys? Warrior Poet Society.
Yeah.
Right? That guy, I've met him. I met him at a USCCA conference a couple years ago. Seems like a really solid guy. A couple weeks, like a while back, totally stomped on the Holy Mother. He had no problem doing it. But that speaks to your point. A lot of Protestants, they have no problem slapping a Bible verse. It's
Crazy
always Psalm
dispensationalists,
144. Always Psalm 144. Everybody loves that one. So they have that. Secondly, the reason why we have this culture of death is because, as you were saying, Nicholas, we have refused to promote a culture of life. We have given up on the abortion issue. I don't care what we say. I don't care about Catholic vote. I'm sorry if that makes everybody upset. But the fact of the matter is, as Trump was being elected, we got smoked like a clean blunt at the state level. Whenever the abortion issue is put on the state level, we get the doors beaten off of us like we are the Washington Generals.
In red states too. That's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
in red states, we're getting beat up. And we've talked about it multiple times on the show that if the pro-life movement wants to get serious, they need to create some serious ground game. And, culture is always going to be upstream from politics. And so therefore, if you want pro-life laws, you got to get on the ground game and start changing culture itself.
And people were praising Florida, and I'm happy Florida did. But the only reason is Ron DeSantis saw it coming and raised the level to 60%. 57% of people in Florida voted for that amendment. And the only reason it didn't pass is because they pushed it to 60. So it wasn't the slam dunk that they're trying to make it. But I'm not trying to say that's a bad thing. I'm just trying to say it is not as in the bag as people want to make it. And then lastly, let's look at the case. I think, Rob, you and I, we went back and forth on the tweets. The guy in Missouri, whoever, who was put to death this week, there was a guy that was executed, and there's long soliloquies from people. Oh, it's so terrible that we have to kill the people in the death penalty. And then Catholics have to chirp in and be like, oh, we shouldn't have that. Catechism of Pope Pius X, who I was lucky enough last week to pray in front of at the Vatican. Are there cases in which it's lawful to kill? And you can find this on my website, The Armed Catholic. It's lawful to kill when fighting in a just war, when carrying out an order of the supreme authority, a sentence of death in punishment of a crime. And then finally, in case of a necessary and lawful defense of one's own life against an unjust aggression. It's there. And that's one thing that I've been trying to do with my association, 1121 Strategies, is that we are not a pacifist religion.
Mm-hmm.
We are a religion of action. And people always want to say Deus Vult, and they want to talk about the Crusades and all this other kind of stuff. But then it's like, well, are you going to be like a guy like Daniel Perry and defend your church and stuff? They'll be like, oh, I don't know, maybe I don't want to go to jail. That's the big thing. There was that church in Europe a while back. I put a tweet. I was one of my bigger tweets. Where is that a newly welcome member of the community from a place in Africa jumped on a statue of, I think it was a statue of the Virgin Mary, ripped the crown off her head and put it on his head. Yeah. And I said, gentlemen, you going to let this happen in your church? Because they stood by. They did eventually get the guy off and they were able to restrain him. But my question is, does he get that far? And these are the questions that Catholic men in blue states and in red states have to ask themselves. And the fact of the matter is, the concept of defense, the concept of protection goes back to the Council of Trent in 1566. This is not a new thing that I'm coming up with. I am not smart enough to come up with any of this. The Catholic Church has, as with every other subject that the people are amazed when I say this, but it's true. It doesn't matter what the subject is. It could be the internet. It could be guns. It could be power tool. It could be anything. The church has an answer for it. You just got to go look for it. There's been plenty of doctors of the church who have examined every single thing that the church is, that society has had to come up with. And they have an answer for every single one. And the fact is, yes, they're persecuting and they're putting Daniel Perry Penny. They're both. By the way, Paul, I'm about as tall as Joe Pesci too. So that's another funny thing there. But the fact is, the persecution of a guy like Daniel Penny is to push down any thoughts that you may have as a man to stop something like that. Oh, well, they came into your church and they're desecrating statues. Don't do anything because the cops are going to put you in handcuffs and they're going to put you in jail. You people think I'm nuts when I say these kinds of things, and I might be, but I might just be nuts enough to see what's coming down the line. And the fact is, guys, are you ready to do that? Are you ready to talk with fellow men at your parish? You don't need to be strapped to the nines, or at least How many of you guys look to the back of the church during mass? I do. People look at me like I'm nuts because I'm usually doing this one, a couple times in mass, or I sit close to the back. Right? Is there any kind of plan? Do you people have a first aid kit? Because I know there's a lot of old people at churches and they tend to have heart attacks. Do you have a plan for stuff like that? It's really just the call to get men back to action. And too many Catholic men, and I know we all joke about it, Susan from the parish council and the feminization of that, and we see it constantly over and over and over. Oh, look, in this random church in New York, there were pride flags around the tabernacle and all these other kinds of things that all of us here think is disgusting and horrible. But at the same time, what have we done? What have we done? Now, this is not a dig. I've done it myself. We kind of, for lack of a better term, we've retreated to our Latin masses. And that's not a negative thing to say, right? I love the Latin mass. I drive 45 minutes to Waco because, ironically enough, the closest Latin mass to me is at a Baptist university, at Baylor University. And it's beautiful. It's a tiny little chapel. I love it. I love it. It's a tiny little chapel, but it's beautiful. It's a beautiful chapel. They say it's beautiful, but I don't know. Quite lovely. But once my hands started going like this, I couldn't help it. But
it just came upon you.
It just came up. That's right, Rob. BWC. What does that mean? I don't know. Whatever. Who cares? The fact is, what is that? Buakawa? That's okay. We say YMCA where I'm from, but I don't know what yours is. Is that the bisexual YMCA? I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. That's fine. I won a lot of gays in the last election. They loved me. Which is another point I can talk about that another day. But we've kind of retreated back to our Latin masses. And have we make fun of our, I know I'm switching right back, guys. I'm ADD. Just buckle up and hang on. We've abandoned the Novus Ordo masses because a lot of us think they're invalid. And I don't care what your opinion is on those guys. Listen to me all the way through. There are good men and women that go to those because they don't know any better. And I make the argument through L1121 strategies and others that we are leaving our Catholic brothers and sisters behind. And I'm just going to ask you, this is not me being accusatory in any way, shape, or form. Please allow me to ask the question. Can we be comfortable leaving them behind? And it's just, that's a question I ask you, not in an accusatory manner, my brothers and sisters in Christ. It's just one that, that I struggle with as well. On that. So it is what it is in that regard. So yeah, I'm gonna step back for a minute.
I think, I agree with you. I think you're right. That I've largely, even though I go to the local Novus Ordo mass more often than not, I'm not able to make the 4-hour round trip to the nearest Latin mass all the time, unfortunately. But so even though I go to the local Novus Ordo mass, I've largely stepped away from being involved in the parish just because of, really it's kind of just due to effeminacy, just because of the difficulty of dealing with the Susans on the parish councils, or the Karens that are in charge of the like children's education at the parish, stuff like that. Like, I was asked to do, I think, 6th or 7th grade boys, religion classes. And I asked, I'm like, can I teach my own, curriculum, or are you going to make me teach out a book? And they said out of a book, and handed me the book, and I read it. And I'm like, well, no, then I'm not doing it. I'm not teaching this. So yeah, I think you're right. It is difficult to make changes currently in so many run-of-the-mill parishes because of the boomers, and especially the boomer women. No offense to any boomers or boomer women listening, but if in your average parish you bring up creating a security team that, God forbid, is packing weapons, they will screech at you louder than you've ever heard, and that's just the truth. So yeah, it is easier to retreat to a Latin mass, especially when you have kids that you're dealing with too. You know, I don't have time to go to a parish meeting every week and not ever get anything done until Susan dies, like literally dies, because that's the only way you're going to get anything done at most parishes.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna have to bounce because just it's like I can hear some gunfire in the background here in Fallujah, so gotta protect myself. But so I'll say
That's
this:
just the moose, Nick.
it might be, who knows? Yeah, no. So it's a good question. So I think we can make a distinction between the individuals who are clinging on to whatever is left of the Catholic faith, what little is left of the Catholic faith in the world of the Novus Ordo. And I think that those people, obviously, we should, invite them to the traditional Latin Mass. But as a system itself, I think realistically, the Novus Ordo system is going to just have to collapse on its own, and we'll have to come out of the ashes like a phoenix. And the reason I just say that is because people have watched my shows before. I have like literally 6.5-hour documentaries on the new mass, so I won't give you that spiel. I'll just give an anecdotal last take. This last week, I was talking with the priest at a diocesan parish that I go to that has both the traditional mass and the new mass. And he was talking about ways of, he's trying to get people from the new mass to go and experience the traditional mass. And for so many of us, we just think, if they come, they'll see the beauty, they'll hear the great homilies, they'll hear the music, etc., and they'll be drawn in. And that's not necessarily true. A lot of them, and he says this, he said, quote, "For them, it is a different religion." And I said, "You're right. It is." Because when he describes that system, he's like, I had to fight tooth and nail to get them just to have the few little Latin phrases in the new mass that sometimes you see. I had to fight them tooth and nail to have communion on the tongue. I had to fight them tooth and nail to get rid of the altar girls. The problem is the system. It is in and of itself a different system, one that is fundamentally half Catholic and half ecumenical, half humanist, if you will. And because of the poison in one, it oftentimes poisons the other. And that's why today, when we see things like the Mayan rite is the logical conclusion of all the experimentation for the last 60 years. To burst the bubble of especially of the conservatives in the ground, the conservative Catholics, Pope Benedict XVI authorized a rite that's unique from the Novus Ordo in the Congo, a Congolese rite that is very similar to the Mayan rite. Yeah, exactly. That most people think, again, that Benedict XVI is this big trad. He's not. He, in fact, authorizes this rite, which includes female dancing and all kinds of stuff. So if I had to finish and just put on my ultra neo-scholastic hat and just say, like, what do we do with this? I 1,000% agree with you. We should help those people. We should help them, draw them over. But I think that we have to, especially as men, take that firm line and just say, this experiment of innovation, of novelty, of ecumenism, etc., that's been going on for 60 years, it has not done what our Lord asks for in Matthew chapter 5. Ye are the salt of the earth. And what does he mean by that? Salt preserves corruption, and so therefore preserves the substance away from corruption. And the fathers are clear that our Lord is saying that the church needs to preserve this world from the corruption that the world innately has. But the problem, we don't see that, and we see massive corruption inside of the church. So we're losing our saltiness, if you will. And so that's why I think we need to jump back into the proverbial liturgical pickle jar, get salty again, and help reform the world. So you guys continue talking, but Senor Rick, it was a pleasure to talk with you. This was a fun conversation. You live in Texas. I'll after the show, I'll get your number from Rob, and let's connect. We're probably not that far away by Texas standards.
No, I mean, if you're on the south side of Austin, I'm on the north side. So about 45 minutes north side of Austin too. So
okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Sounds good, man. Appreciate it. It was great to see you.
Yeah.
See you, Nick.
God bless everyone. I'll see you guys Tuesday.
Yeah, have a good night, man.
Travels.
Adios.
So yeah, I agree with. I am not Mr. Novus Ordo guy. Believe you with me. And Rob, you're right. I've had to go to 45 minutes away from you for mine. There are times where it's just like can't happen. It can't happen this week for one reason or another.
Exactly.
And let me tell you, I and my wife and I, every time we have to go to this mass or this church, there's a church 5 minutes up the street from me. It's a Catholic church. It's a Novus Ordo church. And we're like, man, really wish this was a Latin mass. It'd be so much easier. But this is the thing. I was sitting in this church about 6 months, a while back. I don't know the exact time. And he's a African priest, because that's what you have to do it. And with his thick Nigerian, I think he is. He's like, it is never good or justified to shoot someone. And I looked at my wife. I'm like, I might burn in this church right now. I'm like, does this guy know who I am? If somebody bursts into flames in the back, that's me from this guy just being like, you cannot shoot anybody. Oh, just trying to get it off me. But the fact of the matter is, Nicholas is right in a whole lot of ways that it is a different religion, and it is not, it is hard to watch. And especially anybody that's been to a Latin mass is in any way, shape, or form trying to be as close to our Lord as possible. They make it very difficult, which is why people don't go to these places. And so that's why we see the eventual, it will collapse in on itself. It has no choice but to, because it doesn't have, it has only, it only has parts of truth in it. It's not, the foundation is not solidified with the truth. It's only parts of it. It's like when you put steel rods in older concrete, eventually the steel rods are the truth, but they rust out and there's nothing to support them, and eventually the building will fall. And that's what we're seeing there as far as it is. And that's, and I don't mean to pull that pin on the grenade and being like, oh, about the Novus Ordo or the Latin Mass. I'm not trying to get people involved in that, because that's always a fun time as soon as you mention that, because everybody has their opinions, which you are more than happy to have. I'm not here, there, or anywhere. But no, it was great to talk about that kind of stuff. And before we go, because I think the fact of the matter is, you're seeing the Perry case, the Penny case. Anytime you see a man step up and try to invoke his right as a man to defend his community, his family, that will be, even under Trump, because Pam Bondi, the AG, is not a good AG. You had Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz was going to be a great AG. I think he would have absolutely taken a sledgehammer to all kinds of stuff. Here's a quick example of what I'm saying. Suppressors could have gotten off the NFA this time with House, Senate, President. Could have pushed that. Now with what happened in New York, they're going to use that as a reason to not do this. If you had Matt Gaetz, he would have said, I don't care. New York is a gun-free zone anyway, and you can't have them. Pam Bondi, who helped with Rick Scott push through red flag laws in Florida, she's gonna bend that knee real quick. And that's why, you have to hold the line on Pete. I can't say his last name. Is it Hegseth?
Hegseth, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. We're in agreement that nobody knows how to say it. But that's why you can't let this guy go, because once he goes, everybody else goes. And so they already were able to get away with Gaetz, which I was a little disappointed on. But the fact of the matter is, it's going to be tough, even with Trump in office, because it is the lower levels, local in that regard. And so if you would like to have arguments, if you are a person who believes in the right to self-defense, if you're a person who has a belief in, using firearms and all these other kinds of things, you can buy my book, The Armed Catholic, The Catholic Case for Guns and Self-Defense, at Amazon. You can go to thearmedcatholic.com, where I have scripture, I have quotes from popes and G.K. Chesterton, and all these other things to help you support your arguments, especially this holiday season. I absolutely support Brandon Herrera for the head of the ATF. 100%. And so it's very interesting, because I think Mason Cawthorn's making a really hard push for that. I saw him on Timcast a couple nights ago. He was really pushing for it, but I think Brendan Herrera should, just for the fun of it.
It would be fun.
Oh, awesome. Because hopefully he would just disband the whole thing. Just make it so, just crush it to a point that it just cannot function.
Just imagine the ETF Twitter constantly posting gun memes. I mean, that'd be the best thing in the world.
Friday, ladies and gentlemen, it's department meme day. That's what it is. Everybody has to put in your freshest memes to the director or face repercussions. which would be fantastic in that regard. But yeah, that is that's just the point, folks. You have the Catholic Church. It doesn't grant you a right for revenge, but it definitely grants you a right for self-defense. And I break that all down in my book. Please go check it out. It's a wonderful gift. But before we go, I think we can talk a little bit about some of the places I think Anthony should go in Rome. While he's there. I was, like I said, I was very lucky. Last week I was in Rome. I was in Rome with my wife, and we were there. We had been there once before, so that time we just kind of went around, and we went back. We did a bunch of things. We found a church and it's on the river, very close to the Bastille, the St. Michael Bastille. If you were
not the French Bastille, right?
No, is it? I'm sorry, I don't know. The Basilica or the Fortress of St. Michael.
Oh, Castel San Angelo.
Yes, that's very fancy, which is why I don't know how to say it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, St. Michael's Fortress. If you go across the bridge, which right now they're doing work on all the statues, you can't see them because apparently Rome was like, hey, we're gonna fix everything like 4 months before the Jubilee year. Don't go to Rome next year, folks. There's going to be 39 million people on top of so it's going to be about 700,000 people a day in Rome next year for the Jubilee year.
They'll all be tours.
So I can travel without a Canadian tour guide. Okay. Well, to be fair, I went the first year. We did the tourist stuff the first year. So this year, my wife and I had the ability just to kind of walk around. And we walked into it's called the Church of the Suffering. And it is the church that is dedicated to the suffering souls in purgatory. And this is the fresca behind the altar. And I wish I got a better picture of it, guys. But on this fresca, you can see that it tells the story, because back when we used to love our Lord and the way and build churches that would do this, the bottom right is the left, or if you're looking at it, the right side is the soul being led to judgment by I believe it's St. Michael. Don't quote me on that. They're in purgatory, and through the prayers and the offerings of the mass, they are led to the left out of purgatory, where they are greeted, which I think that's Raphael or Gabriel, to our Holy Mother, to our Lord. And I don't really care. I'm going to say fresca if you keep telling me that.
God, a fresca would be really refreshing right now.
It would be absolutely. So that, and folks, the size of this thing, you can't even judge it, but it's a classic Gothic cathedral that I wish I got more pictures of, but it's just amazing. And then if you are facing the altar to the right, there is a tiny room about the size of an average American bedroom. And that's the church. It's the Museum of the Suffering Souls and it's the Museum of the Purgatory Museum, where they have 7 actual pieces. They have 7 pieces of documented, church approved encounters with the suffering souls in purgatory, and it is mind blowing when you see these things up close. That's there. I saw that.
Okay,
I saw that, dude. When you look at this thing in person, it's real, and it just absolutely jumps out at you. And it's a tiny little place that, if you didn't, I saw it on a TikTok video, which tells you that. But they will show you these things, and it is such an amazing thing. Like I'm trying to send Rob some right now. These are some, and the thing is, it's got terrible lighting, which means my pictures were not very good. But I'll blame that.
I see
this last one I sent you was the one that absolutely just shocked me. And my wife, I love her to death, and she's very good. You see that up front, and it is just mind blowing. And so my wife, she's like, why is it the burn? Why is the burn there? And I said, because the difference between purgatory and hell is the duration.
Yes.
St. Thomas Aquinas says the fires of purgatory are just as bad as the fires of hell. And they have a little underneath this, because it's only 7 things. They have all the evidence, and then they have stories for each individual one of them. And it's just, as somebody who has a devotion to the suffering souls in purgatory during the month, I do the Purgatorium Manual. If anybody else does them, it's actually pretty crazy. But to see this thing up close, nobody talks about it, and it's just one little room. And so that, I believe, is a cloak from a priest that was burned. I should have taken pictures of every single one of the examples. I took a picture of one, but because they give you a little description under the others. The second one, the number 2 one, is crazy too. The book. This is a book. I think the book is the what is it? I have it right next to me. It's the look on the bottom. So the person asked for proof. Those are your 3 middle fingers touching the book, burned into the actual book. And it's
I see him. Yeah, on the bottom.
You see him 1, 2, 3. Your 3 fingers pressed into the book, burnt into it. And when you read the story, it's absolutely just, it melts your mind. And then the last one, the priest that was doing the investigation asked for proof, and the soul put their hand on a desk and then made the sign of the cross. That's approved by the church, and it's just like, wow, that is unbelievable. Just, it's right there. That's proof, right? That's proof of the suffering souls in purgatory, and how we need to pray for them all the time, and how we need to embrace suffering, because that gives us a chance to help these souls. And, I hope Anthony gets a chance to see it, because it is one of the few things people don't talk about that needs to be brought back, right?
Yeah.
Vatican II completely, pushed it to the side, and there's such special souls that are in need of our help every single day. And they'll pray for us, and they'll do all these kinds of places. Yeah, it's a bunch of, you can get the Purgatorium Manual in a bunch of places. So it's not hard, and it's great because it's got a bunch of other prayers and it's a really good book to have. But that's something that I took, and my wife and I just sat in this church. We had gone, I don't know where. Oh, we went to, I'm sorry, I keep sending Rob pictures. We did if you ever go to Rome, and I'm not trying to be that guy, like, if you actually go, I'm trying to give you guys heads up on stuff. You can climb to the top of St. Peter's Dome. If you're going to do that, go early, because they'll tell you, oh, you can take the elevator. You can take the elevator, but it's an additional 300 stairs that you have to go up to get to the top of the dome. and these stairs are not fun. They're built into the dome, so as you're going up, you start to go sideways, and it actually it messes you up pretty hard. But the view is worth it. The view is absolutely worth it. That's my terrible picture that I took of it. And just to give you an example of how the stairs are carved into the dome as you're walking up. It's funny because, and we got lucky. It was a beautiful morning on that, and we were able to take a picture of it. It just seems to go forever. And one of the cool things is, if you walk around the city, they'll play at the bells. They'll play Ave Maria. They'll play.
Oh, really?
The bells go ding, 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 ding. Like, and you're walking around
every hour, or specifically
at
the
Angelus at 5 o'clock in the evening.
Okay.
Yep. And so they'll just play the bells, and it's just unbelievable. So, I've been blessed to be able to go, and I don't mean it as a flex. It's just a circumstance that I was able to go. But if you're ever able to, it is something that I think every Catholic should. I don't have a picture of it, but when you walk into the Vatican, to the left is they build the stairs into the dome. So I hope you're okay.
Leaning
as you're walking like this. There's not a lot of room there. If you're Yeah, my Bell impression needs work. I know. It wasn't fit. That's why they kicked me out. But it's not a lot of room there. It's not a lot of room, and it's but it's definitely working to do that. But go early, because if you go later in the day, there's a lot of people and it's just hot. It's just really hot. But that's just me, because I know Anthony's in Italy, right? He's in Rome right now, and these are the kind of the things that you kind of run into. But it's the Vatican is just massive. And the crazy thing is they have all these, and my wife and I get kind of annoyed when we're in the Vatican, because they'll have these chapels all the way down and they'll have the mass happening, and they kind of have these velvet ropes in front, like, hey, please be respectful right here. I'm the kind of guy, I'm like, just shut the church. Don't let anybody in while you're doing masses, right? Shut St. Peter's down until the masses are done, then let people back in. But that's, and if you do the Vatican Museum, you got to get a tour guide, because it's always cramped. It's always crowded. And 2 years ago, I went in and I saw the Sistine Chapel.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. They're like, this is the Sistine Chapel. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. No talking and no pictures. So my group walks in and we're like, wow, this is beautiful. And then 400 Chinese people walk in and they're like,
with 500 or 600 cameras.
I'm like, what? Can you stop them, please, from taking the pictures all over here? But I was like, yeah, I guess we don't. And so, of course, I took a picture. But I only did it after the 1,400 Chinese people took one. But so that's what it is. I'm telling you, cigar mode dude, it's not very, there's not a lot of room there, man. Like, I was good on the height. I could clear the height. I didn't have a problem with that. But elbow wise, doesn't pass the elbow test. But yes, you saw my Chinese accent. It was very good. I'm sorry if I get the show
better than Anthony's, that's for sure.
Shape or form. But I could go on, obviously, about the city of Rome forever.
What about this one?
Oh, I'm sorry. So my wife and I were walking around, and we walked into a basilica, because there's basilicas everywhere, and a lot of them this year were going under they were all going under work for the Jubilee year. My wife and I wanted to go to the Institute of Christ the King for Sunday Mass, but the basilica was closed. So luckily, the FSSP, if you follow the Catholic Land Movement, they went to it this Sunday. It's like a 10-minute walk, so we were able to get there. But my wife and I were walking around, I think it was Monday, and we were like, oh, this is a beautiful basilica. Let's walk in. And like, oh, this is a beautiful picture here. There's a beautiful picture there. My wife goes, oh, look, that's the relic of St. Mary Magdalene's foot. And I'm like, no way. St. Mary Magdalene's foot is not just in a random basilica in Rome. Yep, there it is. Just like there, the first foot to step in the tomb of the risen Christ. Right there. And I guess because it's Rome, for lack of a better term, there's no fanfare around it.
It's just been there for centuries. They're just like, it's normal.
Yeah. The people there, they're like, oh yeah, boop, beep, bop, boop, that's Mary Magdalene's foot. Yeah, there it is.
Your Italian accent is better than the Chinese.
Ciao, arrivederci, and all these other kinds. Those are the three I learned. Prego, arrivederci, and
they have prego sauce in Italy.
No. Prego is like a weird word that can be used for many different things, like you're welcome, thank you, because they'll say all that kind of stuff. But yeah, and then there was another church. I don't want to keep bombarding Rob with photos. Anybody know St. Rourke? We walked into a church and his relic was there in the back, and this church was empty, folks. The church was empty. Nobody was in there, and my wife and I were like, this is literally a relic, like right St. here, man. Yeah, I will not go into a room. I will not be a made man and go to a room with two other wise guys. I know that. So Prego, really, it really is, because you can use it for a bunch of different things. But it was a lot of fun. I'm glad Anthony's getting a chance to be there, because it's just absolutely amazing. And so yeah, that's just like the last kind of thing I want to talk about.
Yeah. Anthony's gonna come back with all these new Italian words that he thinks he knows how to say. Yeah, he's gonna be insufferable. I can't
It's
wait.
fine. I mean, it's his it's his prerogative.
Yeah, sure.
I've been there twice and I still don't know any words. I can't tell you that, but I know prego and I even forgot.
You were about to say Arrivederci, weren't you?
Arrivederci is one. I heard one of the cab guys said it to me one time, and I was like, it's a real thing. So, but yeah, the food is incredible. The cappuccinos are amazing. All that kind of stuff. All that stuff fits the bill.
Gelato.
Gelato is they have cannolis in Rome. You can actually find good cannolis in Rome. There's a cafe that's been operating since the 1760s, right outside the Spanish Steps. And they have cannolis there. I was able to introduce my wife to those. Really, you can't pick a bad restaurant in Rome. Somebody asked, give him a recommendation. My wife and I would just walk and we would be like, oh, this restaurant looks good. I know this isn't going to be a shock for anybody that doesn't know me. I had pizza pretty much for every meal.
Really?
I really did, because the pizzas are light and fluffy.
Okay.
And they're not like, I mean, there are good pizzas here, but like, the pizzas that are there are really good. I had 4 cheese. I had a sausage and mushroom one in Treveste. I can't say it, but there's a part there they're just good, man. Like
that would be funny. Eucharistic prayer too.
Oh,
it was written overnight in a cafe at Rome.
Oh, probably. probably. I mean, the amount of ones that I go to. Real quick too, like the Coke Zeros over there are awesome. Dude, right? Like I hope Robert Kennedy like imports them over here. Like
what do they use? What does Coke Zero here use? Aspartame?
Yeah, it uses that in the corn syrup, the high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah.
They don't use the corn syrup overseas because it's not like fun. The reason they have to use it here is because it's
subsidized by the government.
Yeah, so they got to put it in everything. So they don't do it over there. And so my wife was laughing because my wife would get she'd get Aperol Spritz and she'd get this expensive wine and all these other cultured things. And I'm like, I'll just take a Coke Zero, please. And that's such an American. I'm like, Coke Zero? They're like, Coke Zero.
Pizza and Coke Zero.
It's really
and they're all just like,
if they had chicken nuggets and fries, I would have had that too, man. What are you talking about?
Y'all got brisket here?
No chicken nuggets in all of Rome. Here you go.
Rick's Googling where nearest Waffle House.
I think that's $1 billion idea, but nobody wants to listen to me on that one. Yeah, I mean, for those who know me, I actually didn't go to a McDonald's in Rome. There's like 3 of them, and I managed to not go to any of them because you can't.
Because you went to the Burger King instead?
There is one Burger King, but I didn't go to that. So yeah, but there is. Saint Pope Pius X is in the Vatican. If you go right in, his body's on display there. If you go into the crypt underneath, there's the tomb of Saint Peter, which you can't go near. It's behind glass, and then it's a couple feet. It's pushed in.
Yeah, it's still it's still like an active site for archaeology and stuff, right?
That's right, because they're still because there's that, and then there's another crypt underneath.
Yeah.
But you can go to Saint Benedict. You can go to Pope Benedict if you'd like, and then there's all the other popes that are all the way back to the founding of the church. And it's crazy because you're walking out, and there's this little sign on this little piece of foundation. It's like, this is where Constantine built the first basilica. It's like, oh, this is where the first basilica was, and so forth. But I'm just rambling at this point.
Just the history there, unbelievable. I mean, everywhere you step, right?
Really, it is. It is. When you go to the Vatican and you're in St. Peter's Square, there's a little round. All of it's cobblestone, and then there's this little round stone, and it's like, oh, this is where right here where everybody's walking over. This is where Peter was beheaded. Like right here. And there's writing on it and everything. And I looked at my wife and I said, how many people walk over this thing every single day and they have no idea what it is? And that's, I mean, we'll finish on that point. When you're there, you're just like this, that, all of it. You can't go wrong.
That sounds amazing. I have to get over there eventually.
It's not easy, and which is why I'm not trying to be like, oh, I've been very blessed to go. And you know, I wish it was something that, you know, churches prioritized more, getting their people to getting people over there. I'm good in small doses, right? You don't want me back on for like another 2 years. I'm too much. So
Yeah, but so is Anthony, and we deal with him every week. So
you guys can also I don't mean to be like promoting myself, but I'm starting
that's
a new
why we
show
have
called
you.
Rick.
I said we have you on it for that, so feel free.
I've started a new show called Rickcast every night from 6 to 7. It's just a general news roundup to kind of, because nobody else streams during that time. So I figured I would do it at that point, kind of as a setup for guys like Rob and others, you know, for you guys and others. So it's on X, it's on YouTube, it's on Rumble, whatever your preferred way to watch it. It's just me. It's pretty much just me talking about 4 topics of the day.
Nice.
So there will not be one tomorrow. I will start doing them 5 days a week next week. I just didn't think people would want to. Central time. 6
the
to
only
7
time.
Central
Come
time.
on, guys.
Yeah, come on. I'm in bed by 7:30. Like, what are you talking about? You know how much? That's why I'm so hyper right now, is because I've taken like I'm on 4 Zins and a cup of coffee.
Oh, speaking of, like, thank you for reminding me.
You're welcome. You got to get the Alpo one from Tucker.
I actually do the good old General Snooze.
Oh, that's the one nice.
But yeah, the Alpo looks Alpo whatever looks interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is pretty interesting. It's all the same stuff. It's probably all sourced from the same places. It's just that he doesn't donate to Democratic donors. So
yeah,
that's his big thing. But yeah, I think I've exhausted this train for the night, guys.
Well, we will call it a night then. Let's see. Next Tuesday, Mike Pantile. I don't know. I'm not Italian. Mike joins us as guest host, and then Thursday is Keith and Esther, and then Tuesday after that, Anthony's back, unfortunately. So, but yeah, our first 2 guest hosts have been awesome with Michael Hitchborn and now you, Rick. We really appreciate it, man.
Always happy to be here, guys. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you, everyone. And if you're not doing the daily Advent meditations, then we will see you next Tuesday. So have a good night, everyone.